Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming today to the Parking Town Hall meeting. On behalf of Staff Senate, just want to be able to address any issues that you have here, and we have our Director of Parking and Transportation, Josh Cantor, here, who will be able to address any questions. He has a PowerPoint ready to go, and we're hoping that we have some very good information for everybody here today. So, Josh, it's up to you. There you go.
Thank you, everyone, and good to be here. I said, as you see in my PowerPoint, I was originally scheduled to be here in August, but had to get called away because of a family emergency. So I'm glad to meet it back here to Arlington today. Our purpose of being here, and thank you to the Staff Senate for inviting us and having us do town halls at each of our campuses. For us, it gives us a chance to get out and interact and talk to our faculty, our staff, and our students. Any place that we can get feedback from people, is a good thing for us, both to share information about what's happening so people are aware, but also for us to get feedback so we can look at addressing issues. People always ask, what is parking transportation? The umbrella organization has several different components. We have our parking services. What you think of has office staff, it has enforcement officers, has our garage and event staff. Our Mason Shuttles program has drivers and supervisors, and then the administrative staff, which is myself as the director. We have a parking services coordinator and a transportation coordinator to oversee different areas, and then we also have a parking transportation advisory committee that's made up of representatives of faculty, staff, and students from across the university, representing all the campuses, most of the major venues. So it's a group that we bounce a lot of ideas off of, policy changes and proposals, and it's a group that we depend on a regular basis to get feedback. So there's multiple channels through Staff Senate, Faculty Senate, Student Government, and the Advisory Committee to funnel information our way, as well as contacting us at any point by email, Facebook, Twitter, or in person. Financially, parking transportation is what we call a self-funded auxiliary, meaning it gets no tuition dollars, and we get none of the general fund dollars that come to the state or come to the university via the state budget. So we have to pay for all of our expenses using parking revenue, and then we also get some student fees, about $88 per student per year, that offset some of our transportation costs. Overall, we're about a $15 million operation. So again, when people think about what they pay in tuition or whatever, none of that comes our way. So like housing and dining and other auxiliaries, we have to generate the revenue to pay the bills. On the expense side, the largest category of our expenses, as you can see, is what's called debt service. Essentially, it's kind of like a mortgage payment. When the university builds an academic building, the university makes a request and we're given money, so such as here at Founders Hall, the university is given money to build it. When the university builds an auxiliary building, such as a parking garage, we're given authorization to essentially sell bonds, and then we have to pay those bonds back over 20 to 30 years. So again, it's like paying a mortgage. So $6 million out of that $15 million annually is in debt service. So it's 40% of our budget is debt service. You can see some of the numbers. The Rappahannock River deck that opened in 2009 is $3 million per year. Founders Hall garage below us is $700,000 per year. You can see some of the information about kind of how much it costs. People always say, build more parking but make it less expensive. Well, if you look at those numbers, you can tell parking garages are not an inexpensive proposition. Above ground, average of $15,000 to $20,000 per space. So the Rappahannock garage was a $42 million project. The Founders Hall garage below ground was closer to $30,000 per space. There are some garages that are $80,000 to $100,000 per space, so it's very expensive to build garage and deck parking. Operations, the university contracts out its operations to Standard Parking. We have an operational budget of about $3 million plus per year. The transportation, we close to $4 million per year. That's our shuttles, our subsidy to the city of Fairfax for the Q bus. Then we also have leases. For instance, down here at Arlington, we lease parking from the University Foundation and the Metropolitan Garage, so we pay for the parking in that. We have maintenance and other projects that happen. On the revenue side, our permit, we're expecting about $8 million this year in projected revenue. And what we do is, we set our permit prices at essentially the lowest point that allows the operation to break even. So in a sense, we are running a business, and that we have to figure out, what we can set things at in order to generate the revenue we know we need to pay the expenses. About $1.4 million of that parking revenue goes kind of to the transportation side of the house to offset what student fees don't cover. Close to about $3 million in visitor revenue per year in our garages and events. Citation revenue is about $700,000. So while it's a lot of money, you can see it's a minor part of our budget when it comes to our revenue stream. And as I mentioned, close to $3 million in student fees that we get each year. That's about $88 per student. Each year, we've been facing annual deficits. Through the contract we have with Standard Parking, we've been able to save a considerable amount of money. We've reduced some of the projects and paving projects that we've had originally scheduled in our maintenance budget. There are a couple years we've actually made a little bit more money than we budgeted, primarily because of event and visitor revenue. But at the end of the day, when we're done paying for everything, including our operational expenses and a lot of the projects that parking has to pay for, including a lot of the roadway projects, we've been losing in the neighborhood of $400,000 to $700,000 per year, and been drawing upon our reserves to cover that difference. So, what we've kept the fee actually artificially lower than it would actually have to be if we wanted to break even every year and not draw upon our reserves. This year, parking fees, we were, for the first time actually, we were given a little bit more flexibility and kind of using some market-based pricing to provide a greater array of options to faculty, staff, and students. Our general permit increased from $300 to $335 a year, $350 if you're a resident student. Our garages, some of our garages at $600. The Founders Hall garage, we actually dropped in price $100 to $500 to hopefully entice some demand. So we've seen more people buying passes. And then we have at Fairfax some different lots at different prices. So the idea though is that, like any product, that really at the end of the day the customer has a pretty wide choice of what they can choose from, and they can make a decision based on their personal finances and time and convenience to choose what option works best for them. University offers many transportation transit benefits to entice people to use alternative transit coming to campus. For full-time employees, we have what's called the commuter choice pre-tax benefit. So full-time employees can get up to $245 a month for using alternative transportation such as metro, buses, and van pools. As part of that, we also offer some parking passes and things of that nature. So for on the days when you can't use the van pool or ride metro, you don't have to go spend money and buy a parking pass. We also have carpool programs, where we have some programs where we offer, the benefit is some closer in preferred parking, which is often a benefit to a lot of people. We also have in our reserve lots and our garages a program where you can actually get up to 40% rebate per semester for carpooling. So, and then we also use Zimride, it's a ride-sharing software that allows you to find a match to share or find a ride coming to campus or really anywhere. It's a free service to Masons, faculty, staff, and students. You can sign up at zimride.gmu.edu. It's a great way to find a ride. Even if you don't regularly carpool, it's a good thing to have. I've used it in the past where my car broke down and I had a kind of built-in network of 20 people that lived within a half mile of me to find a ride. So it's a free service and a great way to find a ride, whether it's one time or on a regular basis. Bicycle programs are something that the university has invested in quite heavily as part of our transportation program. In 2011, we're recognized as one of 26 bicycle-friendly universities by the League of American Bicyclists. Our bicycle usage has doubled on our campuses over the last couple of years. Obviously here in Arlington, we're in a very rich bicycle environment and work very closely with Bike Arlington, but we work across all our jurisdictions on bicycle programs. We have a bicycle commuter choice benefit of $20 per month, which is the maximum amount allowed by federal tax law. So if you bike a minimum of 8 times a month as a full-time employee, we have vouchers that you can use at local bike shops. We've had employees that have saved up to buy new bikes, new helmets, so it's a nice benefit, as well as providing shower access in many of the buildings on campus. So you don't have to be sweaty when you're going in to teach a class or go to class. Bike registration, we have free bike registration. We give away free bike locks that have like a $35 value. We have bike lights that we give away, and a lot of it's to be able to promote bicycle safety. So if you go to bike.gmu.edu, you can find information about that. And then bike share, we had at Fairfax, we had a Patriot bike share program that we started last year. Unfortunately, it's been suspended as the vendor went out of business, so we're in the process of soliciting for a new vendor. But here at Arlington, we have Capital Bike Share right out in front of Founders Hall on the plaza. So it's great to have that. We're actually a sponsor of that station. So it's an easy way for people coming to and from the Arlington campus to use Capital Bike Share to get around the Arlington and DC area. Mentioned parking service is kind of what people think of probably first and foremost when they think of parking transportation. As I mentioned, we're operated by Standard Parking. They're in the current 4th year of their current contract, but they've been on campus since July of 2005. Some of the myths and rumors and things that I wanted to dispel, is that the contractor doesn't receive any profit or revenue sharing, so they don't get a cut of every parking ticket written, or there's no financial incentive for them to. The way things are done, they're paid a flat management fee. There's an incentive fee that they can be awarded based on how they do budgetarily and customer service wise. But essentially, the university and the operator sit down each year, and we basically agree upon what our operational budget's going to be, and we kind of plan that out 5 years in advance and make adjustments. The shuttles program, Mason Shuttles, is operated by Reston Limousine, so that's contracted out as well. So all the drivers you see, all the buses you see, those are all part of Reston Limousine. They've also been on campus quite a while, since 2002. For those that have been here a while, it started off as just a van running back and forth between Fairfax and Prince William. Now we have 6 or 7 different routes, close to 600,000 passenger trips per year, 20 buses operating at any given time. So the program has just grown and grown and grown as demand has come. And also, as part of the contract, university organizations and departments can also get discounted rates for charter bus service. So if you have an organization or a department that's doing a field trip, going somewhere, we have agreed upon rates that are lower than you would get if you just came off the street. We'll go through the programs. As I mentioned, the Fairfax to Prince William is our oldest route. Went from 1,000 trips a month to nearly 15,000 trips a month. I think this semester we're probably in the 20 to 22,000 trips per month neighborhood. So that shuttle service keeps growing. Mason to Metro is our most popular used route. Started off years ago when the Q bus, the city came to us and said, hey, the Q buses are full. Every time they stop at campus, 30 people get on. There's no other seats for the rest of the route throughout the entire city. And we always had a desire for people to have a more direct service to Vienna Metro from Fairfax. So we started our own service, kind of started some rush hour service, and then just kind of kept expanding, added midday, evening, weekend service, rush hour service. We added a new Metro Express route as Fairfax campus expanded, and we added more bus stops so people didn't have to walk as far. A growing number of people didn't like having to take the bus to different parts on campus, so we added an express service from the Rappahannock River Lane stop that you can just get on the bus there and go directly to Vienna Metro. We added a second Metro Express bus last spring, and as you can see, the ridership is 7-8 times what it was when we first started. So it's another route, just like the Prince William, that keeping up with demand is certainly a challenge. Guns to Go Bus is one of the projects that I'm actually most proud of, and I think is really, really neat. It started off as a pilot project with student government back in 2009. They actually approached parking transportation and said, we really support trying to minimize the amount of cars coming to campus, but one of the things we hear from people is, hey, I wouldn't bring a car, but it's hard to get to the mall, it's hard to get to the shopping center to go shopping. And they came to us with having done surveys and focus group data and identify the most the most favorite targeted stops for students to go to. So we started a bus as a pilot project with one bus running, and it was instant success. We added a second bus the next fall. We run 7 days a week, so provide service to Fair Oaks Mall, Fairfax Corner, Fair Lakes, Old Town. Interestingly enough, many of those locations all have Chipotle, so that might have been a driving force in some of those desired locations. And then starting this semester, we actually added service starting at 7:30 in the morning. What we found out was, well, it was a bus originally aimed at resident students to give them a way to get off campus, that people started saying, hey, I live near Fairfax Corner. I could use the bus to get to campus, but you guys don't start till 3 in the afternoon. So now we added service starting at 7:30 in the morning. So now we have people that live in these areas that are using this bus to commute to and from the Fairfax campus. The Burke VRE shuttle, we actually just started this week on Monday. It was something we've been working on for quite a while with Fairfax County. So we just got approval last week or 2 weeks ago, and it started this week. So similar to the Metro shuttle, it's really aimed at people that could take VRE, but they just had no way of getting from the VRE station to campus. So people from the Manassas line can take the VRE in to Burke and then hop our shuttle. It's a 10-minute ride from the station to campus. We also have access to the garage that's there. There's a lot of empty spaces. So one of the things we'll be doing is targeting people that kind of commute from the south of Burke, that they can park at the park and ride for free and then just hop our shuttle to campus. So again, hopefully it'll help alleviate parking demand by getting a couple hundred cars from coming onto campus. The Q-Bus, long partnership that the university's had with the city. The university pays the city a subsidy each year, so students and employees can ride the Q-Bus for free. That subsidy has increased over time. We're actually working on a study right now with the city to look at how we can better coordinate our service and their service. But about 330,000 passenger trips per year are made on the Q-Bus by students and employees out of the Q-Bus's overall 1 million riders per year. So we make up about a third of the overall ridership on the Q-Bus. So coupled with our shuttles and the Q-Bus, we're in the neighborhood of 1 million passenger trips of people using buses instead of driving to campus each year. So that's a pretty big number. Parking inventory, people always ask, how much parking do we have? Overall, across all our campuses, just over 15,000. Of course, as we all know with construction, sometimes that's a moving target, depending on which week it is. Obviously, the majority of them at Fairfax. We have a little over 2,000 at Prince William, including some new parking that's been open and soon to be open parking. With some construction going on there. And then we have 1,000 spaces here at Arlington between the Founders Hall garage, which we own, and then the Metropolitan garage, which we lease from the University Foundation. I'll skip over that. Just a chart I started tracking of how many spaces we've kind of lost and gained over the years since I've been here in 2005. It's not a complete list, but it gives the idea of we've added a lot of parking, as well as we've lost some for certain projects, including the Founders Hall used to sit on a surface lot. So when people say why is the university built on parking lots, that's something that's pretty common at most universities. They're attractive building sites. Certainly the idea from a building management perspective is to keep the buildings closer together, so you're not having to walk very far distances between buildings. So unfortunately, from the parking perspective, parking lots are a casualty of that, but it provides for a better environment from a pedestrian point of view. But the Founders Hall used to sit on a parking lot, but we have just as much parking as we did then, but now it's underground. Future projects, we're very involved in the university planning going forward, whether it's academic buildings. We have a transit center that we're working with Fairfax County on, where we have access to $1 million that was appropriated by a bond measure a couple years ago. So while we have financial challenges at times and we have a limited budget to provide the service, we also have physical challenges of we're running all these different routes. There's some times where I don't have enough room to have all the buses come in at the same time. So this transit center will be great because we'll be able to accommodate 6 buses at any given time, where for those that have been at Sandy Creek, we're sometimes lucky to have 2 buses fit in at the same time. So when you're running 7 routes, having more space to actually have the buses come in is a necessity. And then as well, there's projects going on, future projects at Prince William with the Bull Run Hall addition, the Potomac Science Center, the Point of View. So again, we're involved in pretty much every project at every site and campus that goes on. There's some parking or access that we're involved in. I'll skip over some of this. This is more Fairfax centric, but some of the road projects going on that we're working on to improve access to and from campus. This is a project that we're hoping to finish this week. We've been partnering with Fairfax County to improve the entrance at Braddock Road and Roanoke River Road. This building right here is the Patriot Center. So we've widened the entrance coming into campus, and we're doubling the length of the turn lane off of Braddock coming in. So the idea is that we're going to improve the traffic flow getting on and off campus at our busiest intersection. Campus Drive is a project that will really transform the Fairfax campus more than anything probably ever has. It's a project that's funded by VDOT for $15 million. We had a very public process that involved the city, the county, VDOT, and neighborhood representatives of the people that live around the Fairfax campus. So they were very involved in the planning aspect of this project and where the old road is actually being built. It's going to be an underpass that goes underneath Route 123 connecting the east and west campuses. It's going to create a new, and I'll get to the slides, it'll have a new entrance. And the idea though is that why VDOT's funding it is it's going to divert 20 to 30% of the peak traffic off of Braddock Road. So it'll be of a benefit to the community and to VDOT by getting all the Mason people off of Braddock Road, and it's going to be a benefit to the Mason community by giving them another entrance and a way to get out of some of that traffic that sits on Braddock Road. With Braddock Road and Ox Road being one of the busiest intersections in all of Fairfax County. So this is kind of an overview of the project. On the right is the rack, Patriot Circle. So the road will go all the way to the Patriot Circle by the rack as well as by the Mason Inn. As I mentioned, it'll go underneath Ox Road, which is the road here. So we actually have to build bridges on 123 to carry Ox Road over the new road that will be 20 feet underneath. It'll come out behind the field house, have a new shuttle area there, and go all the way past our intramural fields, our softball stadium, go through the West Campus lot, which is currently closed because of the construction, and come out on Braddock Road. So there'll be a full signal intersection, basically where the West Campus lot is, that you'll be able to enter campus and avoid all the traffic on Braddock. So we're looking at completion probably mid to late spring of 2014. As well as part of the project, there's a shared use pedestrian bicycle 12-foot path that will parallel the road. So it'll provide great pedestrian and bicycle access from different parts to connect into campus, as well as I think it'll be well used from a recreational point of view. A little close-up of kind of what's happening on the East Campus, and then again on the West Campus. Again, a lot of paving's going on right now. It's again pretty massive project. The biggest part of it is actually building the bridges on 123. Up to this point, they've been working on utility relocation with Verizon, which is a pretty massive effort in and of itself. There'll be a new campus entrance, as I mentioned, at Braddock Road. So you can kind of see the entrance and the monument entrance. That'll actually be the first of what's going to be many entrance monuments at campus that are coming about as part of a wayfinding package to help better identify and give the entrances to campus a better feel. This is a picture of Campus Drive going underneath Ox Road. So again, this is looking towards the field house. So like you're on East Campus somewhere near the rack. The field house is on the far side of that. So again, it's not a tunnel. You can see the shared use path. So again, a road going underneath, very open. And as I mentioned, the Ox Road going up over it. This is the area that's going to be behind the field house. Interestingly, the field house is an older facility. There was already a project to do some maintenance and some HVAC stuff and working on the roof. Now, as it's going to be kind of the first building you see as you come onto campus from the west, we decided, well, we need to make this thing look a little bit nicer as well from an image point of view. Some people have said it's like lipstick on a pig. So as you can see, now the back of the field house is now going to be the first building you actually run into on campus. So that's going to be spruced up as well as the area near the track and the stadium. And as I mentioned, we'll have a new kind of shuttle area as well that will provide access getting back and forth. Eventually, there's a town center that would be built on the Prince William campus in coordination with private landowners as well as the county. As I mentioned at Prince William, so we have not only the Beacon Hall Residence Hall, but we also have retail space on the first floor of that building, including a Subway, a Thai restaurant, a Pizza and Wings, and we're looking at a few other places. So from a parking perspective, not only do we have to manage your everyday parking and your resident parking, but now we also have this kind of mini shopping center that we have to manage. The Arlington campus here, as we know, we built and opened Founders Hall a couple years ago on the old parking lot and closed the original building. So that definitely transformed the Arlington campus, connecting Hazel Hall with Founders Hall. And as I mentioned, the university leases parking in the foundation building, which is now called the Metropolitan Building. The university actually now, leases the 4th and 5th floors of that building, as well as parking in the garage. And as of last June, we ended our longtime lease with the Trulin Building, which was at the corner of Kirkwood and Washington. So, every campus has had its changes, moving people around, and from our perspective, dealing with parking and access issues. As I mentioned, here at Founders Hall, we have 577 spaces in the garage below. That includes the old Hazel Hall Law School garage, as well as the spaces that were built as part of the Founders Hall garage. So we handle permit and visitor parking. So for instance, last night we had a debate with Lieutenant Governor candidates, and we handle that at the same time as we handled our normal class traffic coming in the evening. In the garage, we have electric vehicle charging stations. We actually have 8 overall, 2 in each of our garages. So we have 2 in our Founders Hall that we got through a grant called Charge Point America. We have actually had people from the Arlington community coming in to get access for those. So as you see more electric vehicles, we're going to see more use of those stations. So that's again, something that we got a grant to help pay for that. And while the demand isn't overly great now, we're trying to also plan for the future as well as meet current demand. The Metropolitan Garage, we lease 440 spaces from the University Foundation. When we took over the 4th and 5th floors of that building, we took on some additional parking. One thing that we always make sure people understand is the university doesn't own that garage, and we don't actually operate the garage. We really technically just lease the garage, but we are very involved with the foundation and very involved with the operator of that garage and have a good relationship with them. But unlike most of our parking facilities where we own and kind of manage and control it, we don't necessarily have that same control in the Metropolitan Garage. We are technically just leasing space. And then we have an array of faculty, staff, and student parking. We originally started off with the B3 level in Metropolitan Garage being all faculty, staff parking. But what we've seen in the first month is that it's very little, it's not very much usage by faculty, staff, and our student area was full. So we're actually going to decrease the amount of faculty, staff only spaces to accommodate the student demand. And as a reminder, faculty staff permits are valid in student spaces unless it's otherwise marked. So it won't cut off any access to faculty staff, but it will help us on the student side to meet the demand that's actually there. And then after 6 p.m., we actually get access to the lowest level of the garage that SRA, that the other tenant in the building, uses during the daytime. As I mentioned, the Trulin Building and the lease, we ended at the end of June. We work pretty closely with all our jurisdictions that we're in. So here we work very closely with Arlington County. We've been working with them on how to name and sign the alley that's behind Founders Hall. It doesn't meet the official definition of what is considered a street and what could be given a street name in the Arlington County system. However, I think we've worked out a compromise where we'll be able to put some signage to direct people primarily to the garage, and then come up with an internal name that can be used for university purposes and wayfinding. In the future, here at Arlington, there's an Arlington 3 building that's planned essentially where the original building is. So eventually the plan would be to take down the original building and build a new building on top of that could perhaps also have housing and residential units. That's probably a ways off. There's no timetable for that, but it's important to remind people that at each of our campuses there's definitely demand, and there's growth, and there's planning going on how to plan for the future. And as part of that Arlington 3 building, there would be a new garage part of that, and the idea was that would be connected to the existing Founders Hall garage, so we'd have one kind of massive underground unit to be able to navigate your way. We did a transportation master plan back in 2009, 2010. that involved a whole lot of people. You can see from all across campus, and also from the city, the county, and the state. And also our executive committee and our senior administration was very involved in it. I was the co-chair along with the director of campus planning. And the idea was, well, the university has as a campus master plan, which they're actually about to undergo a new campus plan, a master planning process starting late this fall. The idea was, what do we need to do from a parking transportation point of view to provide and meet the demand and access needed for the rest of campus? So not only what are we doing today, but how do we plan for the future to make sure we're well positioned to meet the needs of the university? So it went through a gigantic process like many master plans, but it was a really great process, really engaged. The real neat thing about that process and even about our advisory committee meetings is, people come in certainly with their own viewpoints or who they're representing, but you quickly realize there's a lot of demand and there's a lot of points of view and everybody wants often the same things. And our job is to kind of manage all of that and try to meet everyone's needs. And not everyone can park as close as they want, but how do we manage all those needs? The master plan is on our parking and transportation website, so you can find that if you have time to read a 162-page document. But what it really does is it's really a living document that's to guide us over the next 10 years. It's given us the base of what we need to be working on in order to meet all the campus needs, but it's not meant as like a Bible. It's really meant to be a guide for us and start us on the right path to what we need to be doing. As I mentioned, it supports growth, it supports enrollment, it gives us general recommendations that we continue to elaborate on each year. It gives us recommendations for physical projects, so there are things that recommend certain parking garages and where they should be or what the best places to have them. It's recommended future shuttle routes, it has some financial recommendations. So all these things kind of have to work together to really make the plan work. One of the big recommendations that really have come out of it was, while you need to build future parking and have more buses, you should start off with using what you have better. Why spend more money when you have enough capacity as it is? You just need to find a way to use it better. So we've been slowly transitioning to a zone parking system. The idea is in phasing it in. The top complaint we get, for people with general permits is, I don't know where to park. I want to park in lot A, but when lot A is full by 9 o'clock, either I don't know where to go or I don't want to go where we tell you to go. And so people waste a lot of time circling for lots that we've told them are full. We do a lot of information to say, here's what to expect at certain times. We're constantly tweeting out information on where spaces are available. So if you listen and heed the advice, you'll certainly make your parking experience a little bit less painful. But certainly, when you give choice to people and they make wrong or irrational decisions, it leads to chaos. So part of it, like a lot of campuses, you control where people park. And the idea is, I say it's like buying a concert ticket. You go and choose what permit you want. There'll be an array of price options and location options. You choose where you want to sit in a concert or choose what kind of parking pass. Once you've made that choice, though, that's where you're parking. If you buy a 400 level seat at the Verizon Center, you don't get to walk down to the suite. You made your choice on what to buy, so your choice will be up front, but once you made that choice, that's where you'll do. The benefit, though, is when you come in to park every day, you know exactly where you're going to park. There's no, if I come in at 10 o'clock, I need to look here, and if it's 11 o'clock, look here. You know exactly where you're going to be. So we've been slowly transitioning that. We have that set up in the garages, and as well as in some of the lots, we're starting to do that. The other benefit is it'll reduce traffic on campus. Our consultant estimated that up to 30% of the traffic on Patriot Circle is just traffic going from one lot to another. So all those times that you're frustrated and you just want to get off campus or get somewhere, well, if you get all those cars off the road and have them stop circling the lots, that'll also improve the traffic flow, as well as also make it easier for the buses to get around. That's an obstacle that the buses deal with, is traffic on and around campus. So I mentioned the idea is you'll have a wide array of choices at different price points and can go forward from there. As I mentioned, future garage locations, both at Fairfax as well as here. Our real goal, though, is that we want to reduce what we call single occupancy vehicle demand by 10% by the end of the decade. What it means is, whether it's getting more people to carpool, more people on buses, more people biking, all that contributes to reducing the amount of cars that are driving alone to campus, which can, again, has benefits for us, keeps fees lower because we don't have to spend as much money in the future on parking, more land use available for better uses. I mean, certainly, while I know people want to have more parking in places, from a global perspective, parking isn't the highest demand of land, especially when you're limited. So if we can free up more land for academic and athletic and housing and research needs, that's a higher, better use than just building more parking. As I mentioned, continuing to work with our partnerships with each of our jurisdictions. Not only what do we provide, but also how can we better tap into the regional transit network. So we're very involved in the metropolitan area transit planning and at each of the county and city levels as well. So if we can find better ways to tap into resources that already exist versus spending money to do it ourselves, that's a benefit to the campus and keeping fees down. Pedestrian improvements are always a concern, something that we continue to work on with many partners across campus, both from a safety perspective as well as just providing better access. The more people we have, the old sidewalks we had in the 1970s aren't quite sufficient when you have twice as many people on campus. So continue to work on that. And then also working with traffic and wayfinding is important as well. As mentioned, showed some of the projects we're working on that are going to improve your experience coming to and from campus. Here at Arlington, we have talked to Arlington County and hope to work on a process that will also improve the wayfinding to the Arlington campus. So it involves working with VDOT and the county on county and streets that aren't ours. Other things that we're kind of tapped into, golf cart policy is something that you'll be seeing and hearing a lot about in the coming year. We've seen a plethora of golf carts around campus. There's a need to kind of control where they can be and where they can park and who's using them. So that's coming down the road hopefully later this fall. We're very involved in all the event planning that goes on. We don't schedule events. We don't, I don't choose when the Patriot Center has an event or anything, but we're responsible for meeting the demand. So we're very involved in the coordination of that at all our campuses. As I mentioned, campus access, disabled and emergency access are very critical, obviously, to anything. So we're very involved in those issues. One thing we're working on at the Fairfax campus for hopefully later this year is a point-to-point service for disabled, mobility impaired individuals. The idea is, for a lot of people, it's not easy to get around from point A to point B, and the shuttles don't quite get you exactly where you need to be. So we're working with Student Health Services and Office of Disability Services to come up with a program where people could kind of request rides in advance to help them, whether you need to go from your office to a classroom building or from a residence hall to a student center, whatever it may be. So a lot of schools have introduced this, and we're working working on this quite a bit. So it's kind of an overview of everything we do in a real short amount of time. Certainly, as I mentioned, these town halls are great for us to be able to share kind of who we are and what we do. That there is a rationale behind a lot of the things that happen, but it's also important for us to get feedback from people to help guide us. And we depend on our websites, our emails, and our social media. Feel free to contact us at any point. So, turn it, Patrick. I don't know if you have any questions.
Yeah, I have some. Thank you, Josh, once again. You and your staff do, of course, a great job on all the campuses because it is a hard thing to really manage across any university, but especially with here in Virginia and a growing population. This is a great job that you all are doing. I have a couple questions from email and Twitter.
Sure.
That we just wanted to ask here from some folks. One, there are a lot of professors and staff who work here in Arlington and might have an Arlington parking pass that have had issues with going to Fairfax and trying to find a spot in a lot before their classes start. Do you have any suggestions or any helpful hints of what they can do to potentially ease that transition of finding a spot? I know you mentioned something about Twitter and seeing that. But
certainly, this semester, more than almost any semester we've dealt with at Fairfax, demand is considerably higher. We actually stop selling general passes the first week while we still have capacity in some of our reserved areas, and our lower cost options also sold out at the start of the semester. What we're seeing though is, well, we really actually have less general permits than we actually did last year. With enrollment being up, we see what we're seeing is people are arriving to campus earlier and they're staying later, which is a good thing in the global perspective. I mean, the university is focused on having students be more involved, so they don't just drive to campus, go to class, and we know that those types of students that aren't as engaged down the road aren't going to be successful academically. So while we've worked really hard to create this great environment from a parking perspective, it just means people are getting there earlier and aren't leaving as soon as possible, so it makes it a bit challenging from a parking perspective. We certainly, for the folks kind of teaching on both campuses, I mean, certainly with the tougher parking being at Fairfax, the first thing we would maybe say is, would you be interested in perhaps buying one of the reserved options at Fairfax, and then we'll give you a supplemental pass to park here at Arlington, so that way you could better assure yourself, and we have people do that. We do offer an option if you really want to. You can have a garage permit and pay extra to have access to other garages. We have people that are willing to pay that, not a large number. But we talked about that with our senior staff, and I think we're gonna try to come up with a package where if we can verify you're teaching on multiple campuses, perhaps offer that additional garage or reserved access at a lower rate than you normally would. So we have to figure out the financial of that, but it's tough. I mean, at some point, obviously you have to make a decision on what you're willing to spend for what parking, fully realizing that you're not going to spend more than you have to, but at some point people with all the reserve permits have made a decision that it's worth so we're working obviously the transportation access using metro and shuttle. We know for a lot of people that doesn't always work. I know there's demand, or at least desire, to have a direct shuttle between Fairfax and Arlington. It's down our list of future options, but given the great transit we already have at Arlington versus other areas where I don't have transit and really have to provide the service because there is none, it makes that type of shuttle a lower priority. But certainly we know a lot of people do that. But we'll be working on something, I think, hopefully in the next week. And certainly for departments and staff that work back and forth between campuses, we have administrative permits for people that are here at Arlington or at Prince William that we issue to departments that they can share access to. But faculty is a little different than the shared departmental access for staff. But we'll hopefully come up with something that at least is an option.
I have another question from another staff member here. This is about summertime shuttles, I guess mostly in Fairfax, for those who might work between the campuses once again, but take the metro to get to Fairfax and having to get to campus. Is there I'm trying to read this right, but is it true that the schedule is only every half hour in the morning? Yeah, well, when we first started the Mason to Metro shuttle, service was every half an hour. It was basically on the hour and half hour. What we did a couple years ago is to meet demand during the fall and spring, when we had the most number of people, was we added rush hour service at 15 and 45 after the hour. So you had buses now every 15 minutes versus every 30 during the rush. And then we added the Metro Express, which had 2 more buses an hour. So you had 6 of our buses, plus you can ride the Q bus for free, and there's 8 of those an hour. So there's 14 to 15 buses an hour between Fairfax and Vienna Metro. During the summer, at least what we did last year, we only run every half an hour, and we did not run the Metro Express during the summer. I have a budget request in. Part of it is budget driven, that if we know demand is lower, and I can use that money to use it when I have more people in fall and spring, we'll do that. So, but yeah, it is a concern, obviously. Also, the growing number, there's other factors I think at play, the growing number of people on campus during the summer. There's certainly a lot of people still on campus during summer for classes, a lot of the summer camps and programs. So those are all factors that help build the demand and also help build my budget request for why we need additional service. But it's every half an hour during the summer from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. Monday through Friday. We also don't run the weekend service during the summer, but not to say that we won't in the future, but right now we're not funded to do so. So I would say probably is, during the summer, while our service might be a little reduced over fall and spring,
the Q bus doesn't really change its service over the summer. So you still have 8 Q buses an hour plus 2 of ours. So there's still 10 buses an hour that can get you back and forth. So a lot of it's just planning.
And one more question that came in was you mentioned about potentially that there could be a Fairfax to Arlington or Arlington to Fairfax way down the road. I'm just trying to look at this question here, but I'm guessing through your presentation, maybe if there was actually student housing here, that might actually increase that demand.
I think so, yeah. I mean, we've seen that at Prince William. I mean, we put a budget request in knowing that Beacon Hall was opening, and with the graduate program there, especially with the coordination with the G Squared, the Georgetown Medical Program, and needing access to both here and Fairfax for those students. We actually doubled our service to Prince William starting last year to alleviate demand and to make the service more frequent. But we also added weekend service with like one bus running every 2 hours. So I would certainly, yeah, housing definitely drives, and again, we worked so hard to tell people you don't need to bring a car to campus. Well, to do that, you really got to step up and improve your transportation options so people can get around. It's not enough just to say, no, you can't do that. You got to provide the access. So that's definitely a factor. And then also Loudoun as well. The Silver Line, we're involved with the county, but looking at, how people can access the new Silver Line, and similar to what we're doing in Vienna, I imagine in the future we're going to be figuring out a way to run shuttle service to the Silver Line station so people come in from Sterling and Reston and from the west can drive a short distance and then catch the metro, and then perhaps we go from Tyson's. So there's a lot of things at play trying to figure out where our demand is and what we can access to, as well as our future Loudoun County campus site, where we'll be within a mile of the last metro station. So I'm sure once we get to that point way down the road, we're going to want to provide a connection between the metro station and campus. That's the whole reason that the university chose that location, is because of that metro access.
All right. Well, thank you, Josh, for being here, for answering our questions today. Staff Senate appreciates everything you do, and I encourage everyone to log on to the social media through Facebook and Twitter to follow Josh and Parking and Transportation for more information throughout the year. But once again, thank you, Josh, for being here, and have a great day.
My pleasure. Thanks.